When I think of my nostalgia for Dragon Quest XI, I recall enjoying the game more than I thought I would, to my surprise. I felt the Dragon Quest games in general have a similar enough story with gameplay that doesn't change, but for whatever reason, this one stood out tall above the others. And after rewatching my playthrough, I've decided to place it behind Lost Sphere. Here's why. While playing through the game, it definitely permeated the Dragon Quest feel. The monsters, spells, sounds, music, and even the general style and visuals all hearkened to a familiarity that the franchise has created. Many of these elements were things that I appreciated, as it provided a great launchpad for me. The story structure and how we went about saving the world felt familiar in its approach. By being someone important who is working to stop the big bad, and to do so needs to collect a variety of special items, I knew where the game would go before finishing it. Even with that though, I found myself attached and interested in its development. The characters all had their unique contributions and styles to the party dynamics, and each location had memorable elements and characters to see. In terms of gameplay, I thought that it was the most familiar aspect of everything. The franchise has built specific ways to accomplish tasks, such as going to a priest or shrine to save, which aided me since I knew about these things already. Spell names, enemy types, and even strategies felt like elements I didn't need tutorials for. In my thoughts of the game, I remarked that I liked the game quite a bit, even though it's a JRPG to the core, and even if that formula isn't as fresh, it was still a lot of fun and I had a good time. That said, the Dragon Quest special sauce did bring forth faults that got in the way. Standing tall amongst them was the silent protagonist. Dragon Quest XI presents scenarios where a scene demands emotion and reflection, and the main character is completely devoid of any of that. There were scenes where the lack of a written character actually detracted heavily from the narrative, where in some cases he would just stand there with a derpy face in a serious moment. For the rewatch, I think I share a lot of the positive sentiments my past self expressed, just to a lesser degree in some instances. As my tastes in games change as the years go by, I don't necessarily feel as entranced by many of the elements Dragon Quest XI presents. The story takes a very traditional approach, which in this case means a tried and true formula without much deviation or surprise. I found many instances where the plot would get sidetracked from the main mission to do side objectives, and these kinds of tropes get tiring quickly. And since the game utilizes them almost at every turn, it felt as though the pacing wasn't at its strongest. There's also the second half of the game, which is effectively just revisiting the same areas in the first half of the game, and that was disappointing to see. General gameplay was also a spot where I felt the Dragon Quest style didn't grow up enough. In simple moments like saving, sleeping, or reviving party members, the action just felt artificially more time-consuming than it needed to be, all because the iconic music needed to be played. Purchasing items felt cumbersome and selling items felt tedious. The inability to run indoors felt annoying, and menu navigation in general felt like it needed some tweaks. Combat may have been the strongest element, although it feels like a turn order being visible would greatly assist in the understanding of how it works. With that said though, the combat did feel approachable and easy to execute plans. Some spells, like Zing, are obnoxious in that it's 50% chance, but the mischance on the debuffs felt not great as well. In general, the language of spells could use an improvement, as no actual values are used to help understand actual power. Based on memory, I ranked Dragon Quest XI at 45 out of 117, and I think this one will definitely fall further down the ranks. The game is built on an established formula and is a very solid experience because of that, but that also means that it has to work that much harder to innovate. Story elements like Veronica dying in a flashback are moments that severely undercut their impact. The visit to Yggdrasil Tree was a pretty big moment, and one of the only surprises the game has to offer, so I can see why the developers didn't want to dilute it. But Veronica was one of the characters I enjoyed the most, and to not even get a final moment to see her off felt like a poor decision for her character. Larger elements, like having a silent protagonist being there to contribute nothing but the symbol on his hand, also stand out greatly. This has never been, and will never be, something I will stand by. Main characters, or player-controlled characters, should have a voice and should contribute to the growth of the story and its other characters. By having every other character speak for him, it makes his presence unnecessary. So, I think this puts Dragon Quest XI behind Lost Sphere. At the end of the day, it's a choice to keep the tried and true tradition going, and it's not as interesting as it once was. It doesn't pop like it used to, and it doesn't stand out amongst a crowded pool of the genre. I fully expect Dragon Quest XI to be a gatekeeper of sorts for future games though, as it maintains a powerful stance on tradition and creates a very solid average experience. Lost Sphere has the added benefits of interest and intrigue in its story, as well as a combat system that I feel I enjoy more than Dragon Quest XI.